Well, okay. We're sitting here with Paddy, Downing, Nyegard in their wonderful historic cabin. And I'm going to ask Paddy about what it was like in the days when she was growing up here. Her parents, George and Phyllis Downing, were just fundamental aspects of the early days of Cattail. And we'd like to hear more about what it was like for you growing up here and what your parents were like.
So I am now almost 73 years old, and we've been coming up here since I was 5. And my parents came up to visit Mr. Craig that lived in the Skokas' house.
And your parents were from?
And we were from Coconut Grove, Florida.
Right.
But I believe, if I'm remembering correctly, that we were in Ohio at that time. Daddy was in the Coast Guard, and he and Roland Craig were friends, and that's how we ended up here.
Wow.
And we came up, and they came up and spent 2 weeks, and then the next summer we came up and rented Mary Melton's house, which is on
North Fork?
North Fork.
Bottom end of North Fork?
It was on North Fork. I believe it's gone now.
The house is there.
The house. And then my parents found this house, which had been abandoned, and the footbridge across the creek was almost falling apart. It was like the Excellent Adventure. And we came in and walked around, and Mother and Daddy fell in love with it, and they bought it.
And this house was the historic...
And it was, we found out afterward, it had been built by a man named Dr. Ernest Mack.
Mm-hmm.
And he was a physicist at Oak Ridge.
Wow.
And he was involved in creating, in the Oak Ridge part of creating the atom bomb. Now, the story when we came here was that they came here, they built the house, they came up the summer with the family, and then the next thing we heard was that we were told that they would come up with friends, they would kind of party a little bit, and then the women would leave, the wives and girlfriends or whatever would leave, and then they would stay for a couple of weeks, and there would be FBI agents guarding them. That was the story I grew up with. I'm not sure it's the true story.
It's a good story.
The dates are kind of funky, but the true story is that Dr. Mack was here, and that when we bought it, there were test tubes and beakers and all sorts of stuff in the cellar that kind of followed that story.
So this is a log cabin that's how many years old then?
It was built, as far as we know, 1940.
Okay, I can't do that. That's 80.
2 or 3.
That's 80 years old.
And so it wasn't registered in the deeds in town until 45.
Okay.
However, back then it's not like now. They could have built it and got registered 2 or 3 years after it was built. So.
And is there a legend that there's a still here, or what's the story?
There was a still. So right down outside the house to the left towards Cattail Creek, there's a big overhanging rock, and Dr. Mack had a still down there, and there's still some of the rings from the wooden barrels.
Wow.
And somewhere we had, and I don't know if we still have it or not, we had a copper thing with tubes.
Copper coil?
Yeah, that would be it. Coil,
Getcha,
thank
copper
you.
coil.
Yeah, and it was a big deal, the still. And it was actually in the deeds back then that he wasn't allowed to be doing that. So he was doing that under the guise.
So you were a little kid.
Else.
You were starting to come up, and you were probably mostly coming up from Coconut Grove, right? That's
we
where
came. We came down from Ohio and up from Coconut
Right.
Grove.
And
And
so
we'd
what?
come.
Yeah. What
So
was that
we
like?
would leave. We'd leave the day after school was out, and we would. My trips I really remember are from the Grove, and we had a Land Rover.
Mm-hmm.
And
Famous
we would,
Land Rover.
A famous Land Rover, and we would pack everything in the bottom of the Land Rover. Then Daddy would put a board over everything, and so there were 2 seats in the front.
Right.
And then the board on the
Kids
back
sleep
with a
in the
little
back.
mattress,
Yeah.
so the kids, we could all climb back in there and do that. So
Yeah.
we'd drive up. And
2.5 days. 2 days or 2.5 days.
2 days
Yeah.
back then.
Yeah.
and spend the night somewhere, and then we'd come up and we'd spend the whole summer and leave the day before we were going back to school.
So what were summers here like?
Summers were amazing. They were so much fun. When I was really young, it was just fun because you could run around. No one
We were
worried
free range
about you.
kids. We were free range.
We were free range, exactly.
Yeah.
Feral children.
Feral children.
Free range is too nice. We were probably feral children. And then there were a bunch of us. There were probably 15 or 18 of us that were like my age and 4 or 5 years older, and it was crazy. And they would run. We'd all run around. We'd play. The only thing we were told was, "Be home by dark."
And you had a swimming pool in the back here?
In the back
a
back
natural
here,
pool? Or
there was a natural pool, plus Dr. Mack had built a stone wall that made it kind of a swimming pool.
kind of deeper?
It had a swing. It was
Had a
about
rope
4.5 feet.
Had a rope swing?
Had a swing
Yeah.
over it, and you could swing out and jump into it and play with it and swim in it, and it was fun.
And what about the community hall? Do you have any memories from...
The community hall was great fun too. Just going down and they had, at that point they had dances, and it was a big deal because you couldn't...
Live bands, live music?
Live music, square dances, food.
Pop for sale?
Yeah, you'd
Yep.
sell, you'd buy your drinks,
Right.
you'd had popcorn.
And all the old
Like
timers out...
bingo.
Right, bingo. The old timers in the parking lot with their sipping cups.
Well, yeah, because we're not allowed to drink at the community center, so they would go across the street and tailgate. So, and they all had a good time, and everybody felt free to go to anybody's house. You didn't, because there were no phones in the beginning. There were no phones. We got a party line up here, and we were the only people on this side of the mountain that had a party line for a long time. Had a phone for a long time. So Mother would just leave the key out, and people would come if they needed the phone. We weren't home; they'd just come inside and use the phone. And because, heaven forbid, I said, why are we bothering to lock it if we?
And tell us a little bit about your parents' store in town. That seems
So my
fundamental.
parents in the '60s, Mother decided that she wanted to do a store. She started it with a catalog store, and then it went fairly well, and they bought an old rooming house on the town square where the Garden Deli is now, and
what did it had art in it? Had photographs?
it was kind of like a beginning of the mass general stores. It had art, it had photographs, had penny candy, it had locally made things, it had things you kind of needed. It wasn't really a general store, but it had fun stuff. And then Daddy did a deli in the back, and he had fresh sliced meat and cheese and hams and all sorts of things like that. It was fun. And I went to high school up here, so then I stayed up here. So my time up here was till I was about 14 and a half. And then in the summers, I actually went to summer camp. I was thinking about that the other day when you asked me about this. And so my time here, I was quite a bit younger until we moved here full time. And then, like I said, I went to summer camp. And
I want to know a little bit more about the Land Rover, the famous Land Rover.
The famous
I remember
Land Rover.
that
It's a
going everywhere around the mountain.
1956 Land Rover. And it was white, and it had the tire on the hood and red upholstery.
And your dad, I know, drove it up to high grade. He drove it to the mine.
He drove it everywhere.
He drove us all.
Because
I mean,
you
we
could
would pile
drive,
in.
back then you could drive everywhere. You could drive up to Deep Gap. You could drive a Jeep up anywhere because the log roads, it hadn't been really that long since the log roads had been used. Now, as I mentioned before, it's now been over 60 years. And since those roads were really used for anything but fun, and so they're not in very good shape.
Well, the good news is that since Helene, the Forest Service has completely track coded those roads, completely opened them. You can ride any four-wheeler you want, big one, small one, up those roads, any kind of a Jeep, small pickup truck. You can get all the way to Deep Gap, all the way to the mine now.
Oh, and that's fun.
Because of the Forest Service, so go figure.
But kind of back to, remember, so we have Penny Park up here, which was, the land was donated to the plumbers from the Threadgill
Oh,
group.
okay.
And then they made Penny Park, and because their Penny had passed away from leukemia,
Okay, it's
And-
kind of honored Penny.
and it kind of
Right,
honored Penny.
yeah.
And the original Penny Park had tennis courts.
Had a tennis court, asphalt
And
tennis
people
court.
would
right?
come from everywhere because there were no tennis courts in Yancey County except up there, and so people would come up from town to play tennis on the tennis court. So, and now it's a picnic area, and it has a garden in it, and I think maybe horseshoes or something.
Well, I think this is a really good overview, and thank you for the information on Penny Park. Okay, very fundamental.
Yeah.
So I think that we've covered this pretty thoroughly. And Patty, thank you.
You're welcome.